Good evening. We'll call to order the Monday, December the 16th meeting of the Corte Madera Parks and Rec Commission. We will stand and salute the flag. Flag. To the Republic. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rebecca, when you are able and comfortable, will you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bodeman?
Here.
Commissioner Koenig?
Here.
Commissioner Rose?
Here.
Commissioner Stoliar?
Here.
Commissioner Hitchcock is absent. Vice Chair Charlie?
Present.
And Chair Miles?
Here.
Thank you.
Excellent. Before we start the items on our agenda, we'll start with time for public comment. For items not on our agenda, members of the public will be given 3 minutes apiece and can either raise a hand or email comments to public comment at cortemadera.gov, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Rebecca, do we have anyone in the public want to come stand and make up? Please come to the podium. You may need to turn the mic on. Thank you for coming. You don't know.
Yeah, I don't believe this is on the agenda. It's on the agenda. So yeah.
Fee schedule is on the agenda. Are you talking about the fee schedule?
Sure, it is on the agenda.
It is on the agenda.
Oh,
Okay.
Is that the same thing?
Okay, so we'll do it as a business item. Yes, yes.
You want to make her stay for that?
Yeah, we can make her stay for that. Thank you for participating in your local government.
I was going for the opposite.
Rebecca, do we have any raised hands or email public comment? Checking.
We did not receive any emailed public comments for open time, and I'm not seeing any raised hands from the public.
Right, so at this time, since there are no other comments, we will close public comment and move on to presentations, of which there is none. Zipping through the agenda today. Consent calendar. These are items that are routine or have been previously discussed and do not require any further discussion. Any member of the public is welcome to make a comment or pull items from the consent calendar for further discussion. Is there anyone from the commission who would like to pull the meetings from the consent calendar for further discussion? Excellent. Any raised hands or public comment?
There were no raised hands from the public and no emailed public comment was received for this item.
All right, with that, we'll bring it back to the commission for a possible motion. Would anyone like to approve the minutes from the October 28th regular commission meeting?
I move to approve.
Second.
Rebecca, can we get a vote, please?
Commissioner Bodeman? Commissioner Koenig?
Yes.
Commissioner Rose?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoliar?
Yes.
Commissioner Hitchcock is absent. Vice Chair Charlie?
Yes.
And Chair Miles?
And I can approve it having read the minutes. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Then yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes.
Right. All right. We're going to business items. Review possible recommendation to town council for to adopt a resolution formalizing revived parks and recreation fee schedule. Let's start with you and then we'll do public comment. Right.
Sounds good.
Tim.
Well, thank you for coming out this evening in the lovely weather storm we've had. Annually, we review the master fee schedule. This is that time of the year. Basically, tonight we're looking for a discussion of a passing on to how the fee schedule is currently presented, kind of a passing on to council with some revisions or basically a direction of staff to come back and kind of do some more research and come back with another fee schedule. Like I said, we annually do this to kind of look at where we are in fees. Last year we did a full fee study, did again fee study this year. We are pretty much still where we are in the middle of the market. We're not super high, we're not super low. We try to keep our fees reasonable. We had an increase last year in a couple of key areas. We didn't propose any of those increased fees again this year. And only thing we have is elimination of fees. So basically tonight, going to kind of review where we are and what we're thinking of going forward. Pretty much we have no changes to kind of the language of what a resident is laid out. We made some changes last year saying it must be a Corte Madera Larkspur resident to kind of clean up that language. We haven't had any complaints this year. We've been very honest with people. Look, if you're a nonprofit in the Corte Madera Larkspur area, you get this certain rate. People understand it and basically reserve accordingly. The indoor facility changes, we raised those last year. Again, not recommending any changes to those this year. We raised that. I think it was about a 3% increase last year for our facility rentals. The one outdoor facility rental changes, obviously, we voted as a commission, or you voted as a commission to basically eliminate the tennis court key fees. So that's going to come off. So no charge for that this year. And kind of the 1-year pilot program to see how it works and to see where kind of revenue goes and where fees go and use of court. So that was a recommendation to remove that from the thing. The only real addition we're adding is basically if somebody wants to have a special event and they need extra town support. We've always kind of had fees where I work with public works director or police or fire for kind of special requests. And this kind of we're memorializing what it would cost. So the two fees we're looking at adding is if somebody wanted a public works staff member to be there for the event, we're adding a fee of $141 per hour. That is their fully loaded cost to be there for the event or to set up for the event or tear down for the event. That's what the cost is. And then the other one is a charge for the porta potties. And we're laying out basically, they charge a weekend fee. It's pretty standard. One regular porta potty, one ADA porta potty, and one wash station at about $900 per weekend is what they charge. If they need more porta potties, the kind of goes up on how many more they need, but that's kind of the ballpark they're looking at. No changes to the special event fees at all. It would still stay the same. There's still obviously some additional changes if they need to do any street closures or anything else we work out with PD or fire to coordinate with that. And then these fees wouldn't be passed on to any of our civic organizations, our Women's Club, Lions Club, who basically run those large scale events. We wouldn't pass those fees on. For kind of a point of reference, to get kind of idea. So for like Oktoberfest this year, it would have been about a $9,000 bill. If you're talking all the setup time, all the staff time, and the cleanup time, it's about $9,000. For a concert, you're looking probably in the range of about $800 for the staff time to be there to set up the cones, to set up the barricades, take it all down and clean it all up per concert. So that's just an idea. If somebody wants to rent a giant thing, that's what they would be passing on, just a realistic cost and memorialize a fee that says, if you need staff support, if you need public support, here's what a fee would be added on to that. Just to put it in there so that people are, understand what's going on and they have a better idea if they want to do a large scale event or they rent the park privately, they kind of have an idea. And that's mostly for Menke Park, a little bit in Town Park, but it's mostly for Menke Park for those large scale special events. No suggested changes to section 4 or 5, basically talking about the town's organizations who don't pay any fees, or the Larkspur Corte School District. That agreement is still in place, so we see no changes in that or recommendation in that for those changes. So basically tonight, just here to answer any questions and then kind of make a recommendation, which I will then bring on to Town Council at the January meeting for adoption.
Questions. I can't remember with the tennis court fees. Are we saying that they would start in the fiscal year? So in July we wouldn't, or January? When do we starting the no key fee?
So the no key thing, because we took the locks off, it would be January.
Okay.
We can take it off completely because they buy a half year key or a full year key. But any new fees that adopted usually start July 1st.
Okay. And then on for the civic organizations, when they use the space, we still have staff at the door.
So we have staff there. We'll have facility attendant staff or myself or Steve are there. The civic organizations don't pay a deposit or a security deposit or a security fee. They do provide insurance, but they get to use the facility for free. That's been for many, many years in the agreements.
And do we want to think about, I guess thinking about the times when they're after hours and there's not someone actually in the building in general and we're incurring a cost?
I think it's built in the agreements that basically they get the facility for free. I think that in years past, before my time, A lot of these groups use the facility for free and had a key to open up. And there were some concerns from staff about just liability and just what was going on and making sure the stuff was put away and cleaned up. And now our staff members are kind of there to kind of corral everybody to make sure they're out when they're supposed to. Stuff gets put away properly and it's left in good condition for the next group that's there.
So we're okay to continue to absorb the cost of
This,
staff.
yes,
that are
I
in
mean, well, I think the trade-off is all these organizations give quite a bit back to the town, either in scholarships or in events or other things. So it makes sense to keep that relationship the way it is.
Any other questions from the commission?
When we're talking about large scale events, are there any other events that sort of match what we do for the 4th of July? Are there any, like at Town Park, does anyone have
No.
large events like that?
That's probably the largest event that's put on a town park is 4th of July.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking, but trying to scale, you know, the different fees that we're just considering being initiated, it wouldn't necessarily change whether we're doing more large events.
All right. If there are no more commissioner questions, then we will open public comment. If there is anyone from the audience who would like to make a comment, you will have 3 minutes.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jamie Heaps. First, thank you guys all for doing this. I feel like jobs like these are thankless. So just taking a minute to say thank you. I am here tonight as the executive director for Spark, which is the foundation that funds vital programs in the Larkspur Corte Madera School District for the Cove, Neil Cummins, and Hall. Spark provides critical financial support to our schools, funding salaries for 13 teachers and programs that enrich our students' education, including STEM, art, music, counseling, and wellness. These programs not only enhance learning, but also strengthen the foundation of our community by investing in its future, our children. We respectfully request that Spark be allowed to use the community center free of charge for some of our fundraising events. Our ability to sustain these programs relies heavily on our events, as a large part of our annual budget comes from community-driven efforts like these. Spark's work aligns closely with the mission of Parks and Recreation. Together, we serve the same families and share the same goals of creating a thriving, supportive community. Offering the community center at no cost would be an investment in that shared mission, ensuring that we can continue to provide robust educational opportunities that benefit everyone. Thank you for considering this request. We deeply appreciate your partnership and support in creating a brighter future for our students and our community.
Thank you for your comments. Rebecca, since it's on the agenda, are we allowed to ask Jamie questions?
Yes.
Sorry, don't mean to grill you. I know Spark does a ton of events. Are there a certain number of events you're thinking? Are you thinking just the community center? Are you thinking all parks facilities?
This was spurred by an event that we typically do in the fall at the community center. So that's the specific thought. Beyond that, there's nothing planned to grow it, although we do offer a lot of parent-sponsored parties. And so, you know, we do a lot at the Legion in Larkspur, and it could grow, but there's nothing specific planned beyond what we already have done.
Does the Legion offer their space at no fee?
No.
Okay, so they are. And it's just, okay, great. Any other questions for Jamie?
No, I think that was the primary question was,
Yeah.
is it the annual fall event that I have attended? Or
Yeah, I mean,
endless?
no, I don't think endless. You know, I don't want to say that's all it will ever be, but I assume it's always done on a case by case basis anyway, in terms of what's available and appropriate. So
I'm curious, Tim, if we think about, you know, kind of the audience that comes to these events, if there's any benefit to Parks and Rec having more people having exposure to the community center or events such as these. Do we worry that not enough people know what's there and why we need to invest in it as a community?
I mean, I think a lot of the same families who we see in other events already. I think it's still the partnership of they're taking stuff to community, so they're taking stuff to school. They're the same families we see at Turkey Trot or at a soccer game. So I think it's a lot of the same families use it. I think a lot of people use the community center already on a regular basis.
Although, I might argue to some degree, Spark does have access to some older or families with older children, where often we're using the facilities when your kids are younger. And particularly being inside the community center, like there are gaps where I haven't even been in there for several
Yeah,
years.
I
Like
think I might have to rein this back in because we were just asking
Oh, yes.
the commenter questions, but now we're getting into discussion
Oh, sorry.
territory, which,
Yes, do we have any more questions for Jamie and then we'll?
So if I'm understanding your request, it's for this annual experience in the fall. And then if something needed to grow beyond that, you would come back to the commission and ask for anything beyond that.
Well, no, I mean, the request, my understanding, and it could be completely wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, is that there are certain organizations, nonprofit foundations that have an agreement with you all and the town council to use the facilities without a fee. And so we are trying to get on that list.
I think what we have specifically are our civic organizations that are on this list are community-based organizations that give back to the town. So it's kind of the Women's Club, the Beautification Committee, and those are kind of those specific ones. It's an interesting request, which I think is the difference is they are typically doing small meetings versus big events. And kind of what we're trying to sort through is how do we give guidance there? Because it's not all nonprofits. It's specifically nonprofits that are focused on town. So I think it's a very interesting question. And I think what we need to figure out amongst the commission and mostly for Tim is to kind of think through what are the rules of the road and how we would think about it. Because we want to make sure we have the space for the civic organizations, for Spark available, for the paying people as well, that we don't over dominate in any one way. So I think that's the general concern that we would say yes to Spark, and knowing how many Spark parties there are. Next thing you know, you can't get the community center because it's got back-to-back parties, right? So just trying to think through those things to come up with some guidance to provide back to staff.
Yeah, understood.
All right. So do we have any more public comments?
we do. We received another email on this subject from John Grabham, who said, "Dear town," well, he addressed it to town council, but it was sent today. So I'm assuming it's for this meeting. Dear council members, I'm a Neil Cummins parent and writing on behalf of Spark, the nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting Neil Cummins Elementary School by funding additional teaching staff and organizing impactful fundraisers to enhance educational opportunities for our students. Our mission is to provide the resources necessary to ensure every student at Neil Cummins Elementary School receives a well-rounded education. Over the years, Spark has been instrumental in raising funds to hire additional teachers, reducing classroom sizes, and enabling specialized programs that enrich the learning environment for our children. To continue our efforts, we are seeking council's approval to include Spark on the list of nonprofit organizations eligible to use town facilities free of charge. Access to these facilities would allow us to host community fundraisers, teacher appreciation events, and parent engagement workshops, all of which directly benefit the students and families at Neil Cummins Elementary, as well as the surrounding community. By granting Spark this support, you would be making an investment in the future of our community. We understand the importance of ensuring fair access to town resources and are committed to using the facilities responsibly and in accordance with all guidelines. We are deeply grateful for the council's dedication to supporting initiatives that strengthen our schools and community. I would be happy to provide additional information about Spark, our impact, and the specific ways we plan to use the facilities. Thank you for considering our request. We look forward to the opportunity to continue serving our school and community with your support. Don't believe so, but let me see if that's changed. No, we do not have any raised hands.
So at this time, we will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Yeah, so I'm obviously, I think most of us are a huge fan of Spark. To the question at issue, though, I'm interested in what is our criteria for having something listed on a civic organization. I can clearly hear an argument that Spark does a lot for the community, but I'm not sure if we've got spelled out rules, like might as well know them and share that with the commission so we can just make a determination easily. And then to Alden's point, I think the prioritization, right? I mean, even just amongst the list of civic organizations, if two of them wanted something for the same time, we'd obviously have, maybe it's first asked, or maybe we have in the building use agreements with these town civic organizations, maybe we have a list in there of how that works, but I'm interested in understanding both the criteria and the prioritization. And then finally, is that building use agreement, is it the same one between the town and all of the civic organizations, or is it dependent upon when they became a sanctioned civic organization?
That was a lot.
Usually is.
I will say that some of the organizations agreements are a little outdated. So they're kind of all over the board. Some are very old, some are very more recent. Most of them lay out a number of events. So for example, the Women's Club or Lions Club, who has regularly, let's say they're 12, besides the normal meetings, which they have in the building, there are regular special events, Women's Club, like a rummage sale, Lions Club, like a comedy show or something. They review those with us every yearly. So, hey, we look at the year and say, hey, what are you planning? And then we plug them all in. And then Steve Detweiler, record supervisor, kind of goes over if there's any conflicts and says, how do we figure it out? We put all those ones in first before we put any rentals that are paid, like apartments for a wedding or something else. We get those organizations in first and then schedule everything else after that. Like I said, they all provide us insurance for whatever their activity is, but they don't pay any fees or any deposits at this time. Correct. That's what it says in the agreement. It says events, correct. It specifies the number of events they can have. And if they want more, they basically ask us depending if we have something booked or not. But we kind of know the regular events. We know that they're going to happen every year and kind of pencil those in and then work with the incoming president, whoever happens to be. It's like, are we can have a comedy show, Lions Club or not? Or are you going to, they said a crowd few years ago, they haven't had it for years, but like what events are you thinking about planning? So we know going forward, and even for our own events, like we'll plan our events first and then kind of go to them. So we make sure we don't have any conflicts with a gingerbread house decorating or a family dance or something else, and then kind of fill them all in. So we kind of do those two first and then go to our rentals.
Got it. And so I'm hearing that some of them are different, but there's a specific amount of events in each of these business use agreements.
Correct.
So that's something that we could control if there was a concern about that.
Correct.
And do their meetings count as events? What cadence are the meetings?
Their
held?
meetings are they're in the regulated agreement. So Women's Club, for example, meets every Tuesday. It's either like the first Tuesday, I'm gonna get this wrong. Susie's gonna get me. I think the first Tuesday is bridge, second Tuesday is lunch, the Thursday usually cards and knitting, and the fourth Tuesday is book club, I want to say. And they're all the regular Tuesdays. And the Lions Club meets I believe it's the second and fourth Thursdays of the month for their meetings.
Are there meetings during the day or in the evening?
They're all the Lions Clubs are in the evenings, the Women's Club is during the day.
But those meetings fall under the agreed upon
Correct.
event.
Correct. Those are all spelled out in the agreement, the dates. And everybody else, the smaller ones like NRG or school district will come to us say, hey, we want to host something. What do you have open? We hosted a meeting, it was a month ago, for the teachers offsite for a training they had to do. So we were able to fit them all in one room instead of being in a gymnasium. They were in our nice auditorium, was a little more better setting than the giant gymnasium.
We talk about the school district. That's coming from, if those requests would typically come from the administration of someone in one of the schools, correct?
Correct.
As we're talking about Spark, PTO is a different organization technically too. That would be, they haven't asked, but as we think about it, maybe I think it's maybe the criteria for becoming a civic organization and how we want to handle that, or whether there's a special friends of a civic organization clause that is like another view to this that lives somewhere in between, or if it's simply unfeasible because we've now granted all nonprofits that we know no fee status, what that does from a budget perspective.
Right. And I think there are quite a few other nonprofits in the community out there who would use that if that was open.
I think that if each individual organization, the agreement we have with each organization is varied, I personally would support establishing an agreement with Spark that maybe, because it's a little different than what we have done, but still grant at this point, a limited number of events per year, and that can always be reassessed if the need from Spark goes higher or we're feeling there's not availability from your end. But I think the contribution of this organization to this community is very profound, even though the return is not in a monetary sense, as is in some of the other organizations. It's very significant, and I'm not sure that the cost to the community that's being asked today really is offsets, doesn't offset that major contribution.
I would think about it from a direction from my perspective is the openness to say Spark is a civic organization and would count the same way they do. You could say they're somewhere in between if something new, if there's a different class of organization that you felt like was more appropriate. I would be open to kind of rules of the road on those two things if you kind of thought yes, but not quite, that you wanted to think about them in two different classes. But I do think there's a difference between some fly by night nonprofit that wants to come in and actually use the space for, I don't know, baked goods for.
Well, I think we have to think about not just space, about the fields or anything else. If someone else in nonprofit wants to all of a sudden be field space for free, then that's a different discussion also.
Yeah.
We're talking all facilities, not just a community center.
Yeah. So I think it's thinking about, I don't want to, I want to recognize the benefits that organizations like Spark bring to the community and make sure we're being somewhat fiscally responsible to some degree, right? That the costs that we are incurring from having staff on site, at some point we make sure that we are alerting our friends in the town council that we are.
And I just looked up what they did pay this year. It was the rental fee was $1,000 total. And there was $1,000 deposit, which they got back after the, so it was $1,000 for the rent the community center for the event. Do you have any idea?
That specific event?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is the criteria for being, I mean, I note that on, section 4B(h), it talks about non-political informal community groups at staff's discretion. What's the criteria when staff looks at it to evaluate if something can be included?
Do you want to speak how we got there originally? I think it's more history from that okay.
Criteria to what we use to determine use of this council chamber space, community serving organizations are basically community partners. They engage with community and raise funds for the betterment of the community, like the hanging basket program and donating to the high school scholarship funds and providing money for town events or beautification projects around town, like the Menke Park renovation or the Town Park Plaza renovation or the community center renovations. But also there's the NRG program, which doesn't do those things, but organizes the town for disaster preparedness within the distinct neighborhood groups. So it was sort of evaluated more holistically than specifically what does the organization contribute monetarily to the town. It was multiple factors. I don't know that is the exact answer you're looking for, but I don't know the list of organizations exceeds my tenure here. But that's how we've evaluated how to add additional organizations and how we evaluated what a community serving nonprofit means to the town.
I'm certainly interested in what any other people say, but I would echo, and I think it's very much gives back to the community, right? In a way that is hard to, I think, find an organization that gives back as much when you talk about all of those kids, whether a kid in the school or not. So I would certainly be in favor, but also conscious of, commitment of space and money. And if all the building use agreements are individual, then I think, maybe we start out with just a few, just so that there's no concern and we take it from there. But I would be very much in favor.
I do think what would be helpful would be some kind of criteria or some framework. And then I know so little about, what each of these individual agreements are. So it would also be nice as part of the rules of the road to understand, like, this is what we're going to say is a fair and reasonable amount of events that we'll allow per year, kind of to the points made earlier about like, how do we make sure we're not, giving away all of our community space and not leaving space for other things. I think, yeah, a framework is probably what is top of mind for me.
Okay, so I'm looking at the list of the town organizations. And I mean, I know age-friendly backwards and forwards, and we have one day a year that we use the facility and don't use the grounds at all, the soccer fields and things like that. But I'm wondering about some of the others, like, doesn't the Friends of the Library meet at the library? And isn't the Lions Club and the Women's Club, they're the ones that built the building. So that's how they kind of got in on the ground floor. It's a whole range of uses. And what Tim brought up about it isn't just the building itself, but what about the grounds and what about other parks and other buildings? So yeah, it does need to be more thought through in terms of what are we agreeing to. But I think just a carte blanche, okay, you're on the list, you can use anything whenever you want, is it's going from 0 to 75. And so I'd be setting some kind of framework personally. Thanks.
I mean, I just would echo everything that everyone else said. I'm very, very supportive. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. I think Spark checks most of the boxes that I just heard you say. I know Spark is a larger organization. It doesn't include Larkspur, but this is a facility that is representing, to some extent, Twin Cities. And I think really what everybody's concern here is the setting the precedent. We just want to kind of protect, make sure we're not going to 0 to 60 miles an hour. So I think if there's a way that we can even help create some sort of criteria just to protect other organizations that come in saying, well, we're just like Spark, we're a nonprofit 501c3. Why don't we get to use the facilities? So I think, if there's any way that we can help and support coming up with that, if there's a draft that might be out of date to redo it, happy to help.
Has there ever been history of someone getting kicked off the list?
Not that I know of, no. I've had other people
mean-
asked, I've had other people asked to be added to the list.
Yeah.
The Rotary's been one recently who's asked to be on the list, but they haven't been Corte Madera based or Larkspur based. They've been outside. But I've had others who've asked.
And I almost wonder if the Friends of the Library is just a carryover from longer back than I can count, when the library used to be in the community center before it built the building,
I almost,
but maybe they did used to meet here or use the community center, but they haven't requested use of the space in a number of years.
all I was going to say is I think obviously our resources and stuff will continue to evolve and organizations evolve. So I don't know, even if in part of your framework, did you want to consider some kind of like, this is valid for a certain amount of years, and then we reevaluate in 5 years. And that just probably makes us feel better about committing to something because, I don't know, saying forever or unlimited just sounds.
Something else to consider is the new library and community center facility in Larkspur. So there will be a whole new facility available. And so maybe your idea about a time limited and reevaluate makes sense in looking at that.
Very close to this. Is there anything we're not thinking about?
No, I think for this is for direction before this goes on to council. So do you want me to come back to work on a framing something to include a certain number of events with some direction to say, at least to put some framework in, and then add that to obviously whatever I would include in the council report of, hey, we want to add this with this framework of how our agreement would do based on these other agreements. And maybe it's for a short amount of time. I don't think there's any, I can't remember, there's a time limit on the other ones. I honestly can't remember off the top of
And
my
I
head.
think it's, here's what we consider a civic organization. And if you want to be considered one, you need to ask. Like
Right.
you can have a process by which like we don't have to think about everybody that ever existed or come up with criteria that would sort everybody out. And I think you having some discretion makes sense. You're going to be tasked with these questions. You're not going to have time to come to us to ask if someone can use it next Tuesday. But the ability to kind of come back to Spark with a reasonable answer, either yes or no, but with one that makes sense to them. And is defensible for us to say, yes, this is why. And when we say no to somebody, this is why.
Right.
And I think it can be because you didn't ask. That's why you're not on the list. Could be a valid enough answer because it's your point. Well, we may need to just address it on a case by case basis. I think that's what you're hearing from us is a lot of support for supporting the organizations that support the community. And most of us are parents, so we feel like we are intimately involved with Spark. So if Patty is not objecting to helping being intimately involved with Spark, I think that's a good sign that it goes beyond just the parents, but that be something to consider. And kind of if they're not on the list, we got to have a good reason why.
So as far as form, for business item 5A, I would then suggest that we recommend that the resolution that was attached is that we support the recommendation of the resolution attached with the modification of adding Spark to the list, because implicit in that is the fee waiver for the civic organization listed below is in line with a building use agreement, and that is then crafted along with, if it's agreed to, along with the recommendations that we've made. So I don't think we have to have formulated all of that and have the finalized business use agreement yet. Right now, we're just wanting to get Spark, I think, on this list, and then all of the other criteria that we've talked about. A limit to it, both in term and how many events, all the rest of that goes into the building use agreement. So guys, if you can see what I'm talking about, I'm on 5A1. So you see how it says the fee waiver is contingent upon the current building use agreement. So that's why I think then we can sort of move it along in that way if that works. And then we would ask you separately from the business item at issue to maybe help come up with some specific criteria so that if this ever comes up again, we know exactly how to respond. Does that work for folks?
So are you saying each group would have an agreement?
So they do,
They
yeah.
do.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is accelerating that we are now making the decision for Spark on the list rather than giving that decision to.
So I see that the options are, there's a recommended resolution, and I'm saying, I think we agree with it. I would propose that we agree with the recommended resolution with a modification of adding Spark to that list.
Right.
And then Tim has sort of the authority with respect to figuring out the building use agreement.
So he could decide. They can only get it Monday.
Yeah,
2 o'clock.
yeah, because it's on the ground, but at least we've done that part of getting them on the list.
Make sure we're giving staff enough leeway to manage. the thing.
Yep.
That work for you? All right, that sounds like a motion. Would somebody like to second the motion?
I'll second.
Becca, can we get a vote, please?
Of course. Commissioner Budeman?
Yes.
Commissioner Koenig?
Yes.
Commissioner Rose?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoliar?
Yes.
Commissioner Hitchcock is absent. Vice Chair Charlie?
Yes.
And Chair Miles?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item 2. Lost my place in the agenda. Which is item 5B, review possible recommendation to town council projects to be elevated from the facility master plan, inclusion for the 2025 work plan. Here we go. This is
Sorry.
us too.
Sorry, let me close a couple screens so I go back to where I was.
Ready.
Okay. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Excellent. All right. So this is obviously the second step of elevating projects to the town council in the work plan. We had a great discussion at the October meeting, really kind of going through the facilities master plan of all the possible projects and all the possible parks. I really appreciate all of this hard work in that meeting. Vice Chair Charlie ran a very efficient, quick meeting and kept keeping us on track, which was great. And hopefully I was able to incorporate all of that. It really helped the ad hoc subcommittee kind of give some guidance on what we would do. We met actually twice between that 2 time periods to kind of a first game plan and then kind of modification, and then kind of come back with some information that would hopefully help everybody kind of make a decision. Attachment 1 is kind of everything possible that came out with a kind of price tag that we had in there. So you kind of see kind of an idea of what it would be in each park, which is helpful. And then attachment 2 and 3, which is very helpful I thought from the finance director, Daria, was a kind of a history, because we kind of always asked, like, where did we spend money on? Like, how did we, and then she was able to go back quite a few years to look at, where we had spent money by project and by fund, all the way back to 1920. I hope that those 2 charts were helpful in this discussion. I have a third one that overlays both charts, was a little confusing. So I'm like, maybe I'll just keep 1 and 2 there. But I was able to see like where we've spent money and kind of where we have, what fund they've come out of. In the staff report, I listed out all of the projects. Hopefully I encompassed all of them with the price tag that was associated with. Just for clarification, all of the picnic tables and bench and replacements are a per bench, a per picnic table. And the price is a little higher because a new bench is going to cost more for some ADA challenges or any type of cement. So that's why the price is a little higher. If it's just a replacement where a bench is a pad is fully ADA accessible and fully compliant, it's a lower cost. But we went with the higher cost. If we had to do a new bench in this location, here's what we would have to associate with the cost. Do you want me to go through every park, or did everybody a chance to read kind of what we kind of perfect? Okay. So quick summary of where we're at right now in 24-25. I work with RJ Suka, the Public Works Director, kind of what we've already spent this year, we're going to spend this year. So the top 4 were some Yankee Park improvements, some kind of design of what it could possibly be for money spent this year. Park deficiency improvements, that's basically the dishwasher, the community center. That's the money that was spent to have that installed. Town park pickleball courts and the town park restrooms, or was already been spent this year out of this year's budget. Still to replace some community center replacement gutters. They are in need of repairs. There's some giant holes in them. Some EV parking at Pixley parking lot, and then kind of enhanced turf maintenance of the 2 fields that we've been doing on a regular basis. In our discussion with that subcommittee, we really heard that the East Field was a very passionate and very high priority of the commission. RJ done some research already to kind of figure out, hey, when they had the original master plan, there was a $1.2 million project that seemed kind of high. He worked with the turf consultant, Anthony Camarina, and basically was able to say, look, we think we can get it down to $250,000 if there's some starting projects done. So first one was replace some sprinkler heads to basically have more coverage. So basically that was some of the issues that we had that could be done this winter, so that whenever this project goes forward, they can come in for the $200,000, basically redo these field altogether, with them doing some removing of the old turf and dirt, leveling the field and installing new sod. And we know there's support in the community out there. Clark Miller was here last week to basically say, look, there is support from lacrosse, from rugby, from Corte Madera FC to help with some fundraising. And I have met with him and RJ and Adam Wolf to kind of start that discussion of, if we go forward, how does this work? So ECL was kind of one of the top ones that was there that we kind of identified. Second one was Menke Park. Both Eastfield and Menke Park are a carryover from the previous year. It was like, okay, let's look at some funding. Let's look at some drawings. How do we basically support this for the bigger project? Menke Park is a higher price tag in that it is 2 phases. Phase 1 is kind of for better what the community foundation presented to us, kind of the landscape redo. Phase 2 is more of a hardscape of change in direction of parking spaces, extending the plaza, possibly adding a bathroom. I know Patty wanted to hear that. And some more bigger changes. So those kind of a 2-phase approach, but to say, look, if we're going to go phase 1, then we're understanding we recommend to council, there's going to be a second phase where there's a commitment going forward to make a change. And then again, with that too, there is support community foundation to fundraise some money through the concert series, knowing that the project is of high importance to the community, and basically that they would support as we go along. The third big one that popped up was the town park playground. Before we met in October, it was fine. Since then, they had a playground inspection, and there were some challenges and some issues with the school age playground, which is the larger playground kind of tucked in the corner there. I have some photos of basically currently right now it's boarded up with some signs that basically it's unsafe. in the town park playground instruction. I can actually pull that up if you want me to, and if that's helpful or not. But basically that is a project that basically, for better words, an eyesore. I mean, everybody uses that park on a regular basis, not in the wintertime right now. But RJ and I worked with the current playground manufacturer, which I believe, I forget the name, I apologize. Could they make it up to code? They couldn't. So they couldn't make it up to code. So basically said, look, you need to basically close off the areas that are a challenge and then basically figure out what we're going to do. RJ kind of gave 3 scenarios of kind of fixing the town park playground. One is just basically replacing the deficient structure at about 75K. One is replace the deficient structure with installing new rubber surface about 150K. The last one is we're replacing both the adjacent structure and the base deficient structure and installing new rubber, which is about 275,000. If that goes forward, you'll see a lot of community outreach, just like we did with pickleball, with skate park, with the bathrooms. Obviously, it's such a well-used park, and just doesn't look great right now. But it's an old park that was probably built in the early 2000s, and playgrounds have this life cycle, and this one's pretty much at the end of its life cycle. So those are 3 big ones staff kind of did some research on. Tonight, basically, what we're looking for is basically review of the list. We'd like to recommend at least those 3 projects forward, and then anything else you guys feel very passionate about. And then basically, I will bring it to the strategic planning session in late January with town council for discussion, and then for hopefully inclusion in the work plan for 2025. If you want to see pictures of the playground, I do have them, but I just. Well, we're gonna tempt fate here and see what happens. So,
Questions and public comment then discussion. So questions from the commission.
Tim, you cited 3 different versions of fixing the children's playground.
correct.
And I'm wondering, would your leaning be towards going with the broader improvement? Because next year, if we come back to it and say, well, now let's do something beyond the ground, coating that you want to put in there, we would be less likely to do it, thinking, well, we just worked on the playground. So I'm wondering, do you think it's wise to go big and do the playground right, or to the furthest extent? Thanks.
I would say from playground design, it's probably hard to do a piecemeal of one structure, not the other structure. You're going to want to redo the whole playground. So there's some top pictures of what's board up, and there's some bottom pictures of what currently is where it's shut down. I think that I think if there's enough funding, I would do the whole thing. I think obviously, I think you have more community buy-in. I think you have more excitement of redoing a playground that is well used by both children at Kendall Cummins, people who are in the park on a regular basis. And then this is the older kids. So that is currently what it is. But I would go for if there is funding allowed, I think you do a full playground and you get the whole community behind it.
Can I clarify on that? So the replacing the deficient structure, is it just that individual part of that aged playground, or is it the whole structure in that area?
So what is deficient is, I'm going to change. I'm going to go back to the other one here. Sorry, this was a lot of attachments. I apologize because it was more than I have had in a while. So likely, maybe not. Okay, there we go. So the structure here on this part right here is see if I can zoom in. And make
It's a whole structure.
the whole structure to the right is what's deficient, correct? The
Yes.
structure to the left part of it is what is still okay to be used. Sorry, I missed my large screen.
So
There we go.
What do you mean? Wait, left?
So
The yellow. Okay.
sorry, again,
Yeah,
colorblind, so I'm not going to say color. So the yellow is what is currently deficient. The structure next to it is what is okay.
The tall slide is okay.
The tall slide is okay, but what is deficient is some of the climbing areas
Yeah.
and bars and stuff for deficient.
So alt 3 would be replacing both.
Correct.
Parts.
All 3 would be replacing that entire section and putting resilient surface and taking out the wood chips.
And if you were to redo the shade, that's the additional 100K. In,
The shade structure, you mean?
yeah,
That's not mentioned.
No, the shade structure is not on this right now. What is just on it is basically if we replace the deficient structure with the new structure, don't put
yeah.
any resilient surfacing down, or replace both both
Okay.
play structures and don't add any resilient surfacing, or replace both structures and put the resilient surfacing down and get rid of the wood chips.
But option 2 is replacing the deficient structure and installing new rubber surface just under half of the,
No.
what will be half or the whole thing?
A whole thing, but
Right.
you'll have a new piece of playground and an old piece of playground.
Oh.
I have to bring all options.
To go big here.
Sorry. Go big or go home. So yes, all the options.
I want to play on the sad side.
It'll be sad.
Is there a way to zoom out? I don't know what is wrong with my brain today. I cannot picture which particular portion we're talking about here.
So this is
sand pits
this
over
is the
there.
little people.
Here, let me scroll down. This might be more helpful. So does that make more sense there?
Okay.
Is that more helpful in the?
Yeah, I think so. So
I think you need like the aerial view with the full circle.
yeah, that's what I was looking for.
So this is this part of the structure that is, and this is okay. So the big slide here, the bridge is okay, but the other parts here that connect it are what's not okay.
There was like a seal.
There's a seal, there's a climbing wall right next to it.
I swear I thought that was redone recently and obviously it was not.
No, that hasn't been touched since the early
Very
two
old.
thousands. I could probably try to pull up a Google Earth if that's easier.
These are in our packet.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that and that was not for some reason.
That didn't help.
Let me pull up Google Earth for you.
Why? I think it's the shade structure. I can't place it and it's messing with me.
Because the shade structure.
It's right where there's like
Shade
the
of
drinking
nothing.
fountain,
Yeah,
there's
see,
green,
this is the
really.
bigger kid half of that part. And you go in and littles go this way, bigs go that
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. And it's the bigs.
It's the bigs. But the climbing wall can.
The climbing wall is
What's the
fine.
climbing wall on here?
It's under that,
Okay, maybe that's, I thought this is all, okay.
that can stay.
It's crashing.
I think she's got it.
You're okay?
Yeah, no, I think so.
Should I
So
draw
that's
you
the climbing wall there. Okay. It was just covered by something.
The outdoor fitness equipment that we've got in both Cove and Town Park. I know we discussed this, a fitness court, and we had a potential partner that was going to do this with us for like a quarter of this price, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And at the time, we just deemed it wasn't something people wanted back as something that people have asked for, or is it something that just?
Was that before my time? I don't remember that. Was that?
Now,
I remember the Cheryl Lunch and I had sent me a couple of renderings and drawings of possible locations of the park, and that was the price that came with it, of basically creating a cement pad and then 4 or 5 apparatus, maybe 6 apparatus together in one location.
Okay,
But that was the price tag that we had gotten from that,
okay.
and that's including, I think, obviously any prep work or any type of drainage or cement that has to go in.
And, oh, we're pointing at Patty. I was going to ask you, does it really cost $6,000 per bench?
So that is if it's a brand new bench that it needs a pad port.
Is that a wood bench?
It's a wood bench, but it's treated. So it's a treated, not a metal bench. But that's actually in the bench next discussion. But yeah, so it's a wood bench, but it's treated with a
Preserved.
resin. Yes.
Okay.
So that would be if you had to put a brand new bench in and put a ADA pad to access it, it would cost that much. Yes. The bench alone is almost $3,500. Yeah, they're expensive. Yeah.
I think the outdoor equipment may have evolved from the senior survey where they wanted some specific equipment that would be appropriate. Things like helping your balance, and then there's a rail on each side, or something to help your strength in your feet, or the different things. And there are many companies that make very expensive equipment like that. So it would take figuring out what people would actually use and what we could actually afford. But I think it's a good idea to start with something.
Chair Miles, I think I have some information I can share with the commission from, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. I can't keep track.
Louise was leading.
But, it must have been 2019. There was a grant opportunity that staff was exploring to partner with, may have been Marin Health. There was going to be a grant opportunity to put one of those pads with the exercise equipment like they have over at Marina Green and other places I remember them showing pictures of. And I know that they actively looked for a space large enough to accommodate that footprint and be able to accept those grant funds. And don't recall why it fell through. I think there was some
Lots of
space
green space.
constraints.
What?
And where it needed to go wasn't fully supported. I would need to look at those minutes. to Let you know, but I can share that with the group.
Right. Tim, bring us back. What do
Okay.
you need?
Well, I think you need any public comment. Sorry, any more questions before we go to public comment? I'm good. I'm good.
Yes. Okay. Public comment. Do we have any emailed or raised hands?
Checking for raised hands, and I do not see any raised hands. Do not have any online attendees this evening. There we go. We have an emailed letter from Clark Miller, who says, is it one page? 2 pages. Let me just start my timer in case this goes long. Dear Parks and Recreation Commissioners, my name is Clark Miller, and I am a board member of the Corte Madera Football Club. On behalf of the almost 1,200 local kids and families in our club, I want to offer our strong support for a proposed rehabilitation of the East Field. Our club has enjoyed tremendous growth since its inception less than 10 years ago, in part due to its emphasis on serving children in our local community. Additionally, our club is distinctive among its competitive set, and that we are uniquely not a year-round program, instead focusing on developing multi-sport athletes who benefit from playing a number of different sports throughout their young lives. Our club's successful growth has led to greater playing time and intensity at town parks, so we're advocating for improved field conditions to enable the club's young athletes to continue to thrive. For the last 2 years, Parks and Recreation staff and this commission have conducted an impressive master planning process, including extensive public outreach and thorough analysis of the community's needs, which has led to a clear and actionable master plan. As you discussed tonight, the merits of which projects to recommend for implementation in 2025. I urge you to consider the rehabilitation of the East Field. Over the last 2 years, the project has consistently been recognized as a top-rated project, has garnered significant public support, and has been identified as a near-term priority. The club has been patient during this period, as well as in prior capital planning cycles, and requests that the project proceed now. It is important to note that the town park fields have seen considerable improvement over the last 2 years, thanks to Public Works concerted efforts. An enhanced maintenance program included in the regular rolling and aeration of the fields, additional application of seed and fertilizer, supplemental topsoil to level out field bumps, and twice per week mowing has provided a more consistent playing experience. That said, there are inherent deficiencies in the fields, e.g. an inappropriate soil subbase, poor drainage, inefficient irrigation, pervasive weed growth, which cannot be fixed by maintenance alone. These deficiencies prevent Town Park from being of a caliber commensurate with other club facilities within our league. Furthermore, the fields currently need to be closed for many months of the year to allow recovery for the next season. In fact, the club currently pays other towns in the region for soccer field space when Town Park is unplayable, to the tune of almost $7,500 annually. Rehabilitating the East Field will deliver a number of benefits to Corte Madera. First, it will broaden the appeal of town park fields to other sports, including lacrosse, rugby, baseball, softball, which in turn creates field revenue opportunities for the town. Second, enhanced fields will have the ability to attract more events, tournaments, play days, exhibitions, and create more benefits to the local economy. In 2024, there were almost 1,200 children playing recreation and competitive soccer in the club, of which a full third were from Corte Madera. 393 children. And almost half, 603 children were from Corte Madera and Larkspur combined. Our opponents also come to Corte Madera in droves, and not surprisingly, also heavily support the local economy. On a typical fall weekend, this time, there were still 3 more paragraphs. I will email this letter to the commission, and it will be available on the town's website tomorrow. Thank you.
So if you bring it back to the council for discussion. We are discussing which of these items, there's the three items. Maybe we break it up into the three items that you were proposing.
Correct.
To take to town council, which is the park, sorry, the field, Mankey Park. Remind me of the third one.
The playground, town park
The
playground.
playground. And then so you want to know which version of the playground among those.
I think it would be helpful. I think it's going to be, look, there's support from commission for some type of redo of the playground. Obviously, as funds allow, we'll figure out what happens, but I think
Mhm.
that's direction to include in the work plan. And then for finance, myself and RJ to figure out how we fund it and what level. Obviously, depending on what kind of structure goes up there, the price changes a little bit. And there's quite a few playground manufacturers out there also. Depending on what we have budget work with and working with community to figure out what you put back there. Is there a theme? Are there certain aspects of elements? There's a lot of things you can imagine up in playground. So I think Larkspur just opened one that's pretty imaginative too. I know Lisa was telling me about that.
Greenbrae.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, Greg.
Should we take these one thing at a time?
And then also the other things you want to add on the back end to include for me to represent at that
So maybe I can start since I
Yeah.
was on our little subcommittee with
Yes.
Patty. And, first of all, I want to thank Tim for doing so much of this extra legwork because between these meetings, me and Patty had a lot of questions of what's the history to help inform where we go from here. And I know that was a lot of extra work for Tim, so I want to just thank you. So I decided to pull mom's group I'm in for Corte Madera, just get some quick thoughts and like validation for what we decided to advance and really focus on. And I think there was a lot of enthusiasm in the group of wanting to kind of go big for Town Park. I think something you had mentioned was in South Marin, like between Piper Park and Town Park, those are the most trafficked playgrounds. And so given that it is our flagship, I guess, for Parks and Rec, I think it would be great to kind of do the broader proposal of the entire playground upgrade. And then, I think there was also a lot of interest in kind of updating that shade structure that's next to it so that there's just more seating underneath it and, a place for people to be. There's this shade structure, but nothing that's kind of sits beneath it. So I do think that is something to explore. I got a lot of commentary on what about the pool? And I was like, the pool's done. We're not talking about the pool. But there were some ideas on, could you add a water feature or some kind of splash pad kind of thing for the summer in the playground? I don't know how much that would cost. I just wanted to throw it out there. But yeah, I think there was a lot of enthusiasm for that. And then I think a lot of people were also very excited about Mankey Park and trying to upgrade that. I got some commentary, and I don't know if this even sits within Parks and Rec, but people kind of speeding through that kind of parking lot area and people with little kids feeling really scared about having them walk through the playground and the park technically and run over. So those were a lot of the comments I got. And I got some commentary on dog park, but maybe I'll save that because that's not part of the three.
I would like to support, we do all of these things. I know, it's good to wish for things. I continue to feel strongly about the East Field being a priority. We've just talked this through and through, and I really think it's time for action, big action. And Mankey Park has become so much more of a hub for the community than it used to be, which is so great to see. And there really is improvements that need to be made. So obviously phasing it makes sense, both fiscally and for the amount of work and disruption it is. So I, appreciate the phase one. Those two things, I can say I walked into the meeting thinking those were the two big priorities and then not knowing though about the playground. And that is not something that can be ignored. We've all said it, but that park, that playground, it brings people from all over the county, and we do want to serve the greater community. So, yes, do it all.
Yeah, I'm a vote for it all as well. Absolutely rehabilitation of the East Athletic Field. I feel strongly about that. But I'm going to make a really hard sell for the Cove Park. So before we talk about redoing shade structures and benches at Town Park, how about any shade structure or benches at the Cove? So all of that side of the community, there's not a safe bike path over for those kids to come. So it's the Cove, and it is primarily deep underwater. Like the field is hard to play on. It's a rough situation over there. And so I really strenuously do not want to see Cove neglected out of the first push that we make. And I don't know if I mentioned I feel really strongly about that. I feel very strongly in case that was not being conveyed. Yeah, so, you know, I'd welcome my fellow commissioners to sort of join me in not forgetting the east side as well. So, yep. And then I won it all. But yeah, let's not forget that.
Fair.
Yeah, I can go next. I mean, I don't want to kind of get into like a whole bunch of other questions, but I was kind of taken a little bit back by the sudden reduction in estimate for the East Field. And I do have some concerns on what we might be leaving out. My big concern is that we rush into doing something, putting in $250,000 and then find out that we should put in a better irrigation system. I find it a little bit hard to believe that for $250K, we can fix it. So we have good longevity of a field that we'll have for a generation or two. We don't have to get into the details of it, but I mean, if that's genuinely a legit number that we can actually knock out in the next year or two, I mean, that's fantastic. I was put a big smile on my face for that. So I just want to make sure that the irrigation and the grading is like included in that, and we're not just kind of throwing some money at something that we're going to have to redo eventually. Anyway, I think the Cove is being neglected. I will call that out as well. And the only thing that I didn't see on there that I do feel strongly about is the replanting of the trees, because that we've lost some really, really big shade structures, natural shade structures, and those things take decades to grow back. So procrastinating on that really probably shouldn't do. And I don't think that it's, I mean, we're talking probably 5 to 10K. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's a second item. It was estimated at 5,000 to replace the trees that were lost from the picnic area.
Gotcha. Okay. So I just don't want to neglect that either. Everything else, I mean, I think the playground, it is our crown jewel. I do think we have to show some love and respect for that. Yeah, that's all.
Well, I was initially confused by the shade structure reference, town park shade structure at playground, because there is a shade structure at the playground, but then I see it says additional shade structure. So yes, I totally understand that before adding an additional shade structure to one park, maybe the orphan park should get its first shade structure. So I think that's a very good idea. I did not see anything on here, and having sat with Lisa on the subcommittee, that is extraneous and that we should put off. I think the things that are low-hanging fruit, like the distance markers and things along that line, people will appreciate it. I don't know how the benches and the tables cost is going to fit in with the next item on the agenda, so that remains to be seen. But yeah, I'd say this is winnowed down to important things that we should push for. Thanks.
Right. I'm in favor of the fields. I've said that. As our biggest ticket item, I just want to make one thing on having played a soccer season all the way in that field. The teams that have worse fields beat us every time. The teams that have better fields, we crush. It's not about the field always. It's not that it doesn't matter, but it's not the only thing that matters. So there is some resilience that gets learned from a field with potholes, is what we learned this season the hard way. Mickey Park,
So
big
make it
fan of. The playground, I do the whole thing. The shade structure at that playground has, pardon my French, pissed me off ever since I've been on the council. It went on my first year on the council. It shades absolutely nothing. Depending on the time of the day, it doesn't, I've never seen anyone stand under it. It is literally
Because there's nothing under
crazy.
there.
Well, there's nothing underneath it. But you
Do
can't even
people bring chairs?
no, and you can't even, there's the way that, depending on the time of day, because the sail doesn't move, it only shades like a corner. Most of the time it's shading the toilets. Like it's just, yeah, I mean, it's never worked. And so it makes me mad.
But it'd
So
just
it'd
be
be nice for it to
repositioned?
work or it can't be naturally repositioned. If we can use the post and put like a square tent instead of the weird sails, but the sun changes its angle all day long and throughout the year. And so, a fixed thing doesn't work.
To move the sun.
We have to move the sun. There was something that they brought up when the team outlined the skate park and the pickleball courts, which was a mound, kind of a grass mound on the far side of the
Yeah.
west field. That was going to be kind of a natural divider, kind of somewhere where those trees would be. I would love to see that kind of thing come back. I think that would be both a seating area, create some natural separation. We could do it with the trees as well and kind of be a nice shady spot. But that would be something that isn't on here that I would love to bring back. We should talk about the fitness courts again, because I think that was brought up and brought out for a good reason, but I can't remember exactly what it was. I think there was concern that children would be on it all day long, and it would become a challenge for small children living on it. And then I would advocate for benches and natural things that everyone can enjoy that has been neglected. We tend to go, oh, they're expensive, and we miss them. I would push for benches and tables.
So I will speak to the natural mound, the discussion of putting it back this year. I don't think we were ready to put it back. I think there were some concerns I had with where it was going to be. A lot of kids use it as a bike jump and how it was all going to do with the field. It will definitely be on the work plan for this year. Something Public Works is going to do. They have the amount of dirt. They're going to move over there and figure it all out. But it was a little rushed to kind of figure out. I just want to dump them out and then think about it later. What about the trees and the picnic tables and that kind of stuff. I think for me would be helpful is, since we don't want to neglect Cove, or there's certain things we want to put on that list specific at Cove. Is it play structure? I mean, I'm sorry. Is it shade structure more important? Is it new picnic tables? Like what's specifics will help obviously kind of make decisions, or certain things that you'd want to see in that work plan item.
Finishing it.
Can I add something really fast about Cove Park? We have to keep in mind that that is district property that we have a town use agreement for. So their improvements have an added layer of having to go through the school district first.
No, I appreciate you mentioning that. I've read that agreement, so I know I know it well, but you're right. There is that. And to the extent you guys need to leverage me to shimmy on over to the school board, you just say the word. So as far as, being there a lot and seeing how it's used, I want to throw that out there in case you guys think this is my personal wish list. It's not, but I think low hanging fruit, that additional pathway, right, would be really helpful to sort of connect the area in a way that's meaningful, because kids are biking around and through. It's funny, the shade structure, although I made my big little to-do about, before you get another one, we want one. But we all know it's windy and cold at the Cove a lot of the time. So that might not be necessarily. Yeah, that might have been a little bit of me just.
I think we usually chase the sun.
Yeah,
We're like
exactly.
far away from the game because we're following the sun.
So unless by shade structure you meant wind protector, then that I don't think necessarily is as high a priority. But I do think, the benches and seating area, because otherwise our good friends that come over for baseball games or whatever are sitting on those really cold benches and uncomfortable places. It's a small area. And I think some more picnic tables and benches and the path improvement would go a long way to just making it a more friendly place for people to congregate.
Are you thinking more by the field or by the picnic area? I'm trying to get like
Sure. So there's,
direction.
yeah. So right now there's sort of two very old picnic tables, right near kind of the parking lot area.
Okay. Baseball, okay.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there can be, because
Some over by the back.
there's some way over on the bathroom.
Got it.
I'm wondering if it's, maybe we could even leave the old ones for, I don't care as much, but add one more in that area. So there's sort of a bit more of a cluster that could be used, because unfortunately there's that ditch right there. where it just fills with water and it's muddy almost all the time. And so the kids aren't playing that close to the blacktop. So it actually does give an opportunity to make that into more of a picnic area that more people could use and congregate. As they're watching their kids play baseball and whatnot. So I think that area is an area that could be used better.
Super helpful. Thank you.
I know RJ's looked at that field a little bit, but I don't know if we've looked at what it would take to make it less of a swamp and more of a field, especially the outfield. And then we were using it for soccer this fall. And I know that because it's a shared use agreement, it's kind of maybe direction from you on what we might be able to take back to the school board and say, this is what it's going to take to get a field that's usable. And then help us figure out how to build that partnership of that bridge.
I do not know enough about the drainage of that field. I know it is very close to the water table. And that's why it's wet almost year round.
Yeah. Have we assessed it at all? Do you know if Public Works has looked at it?
I do not
closely?
know. I can follow up though and ask.
Okay, I think that's kind of like, do they have a sense of what it would take so that we could start the conversations?
I mean, it's something I could ask the consultant who's coming up to look at town park, is like, if you have ability, can you at least give an assessment of where this field is? And it challenges what would it take to,
Is it salvageable? And-
Yeah.
Well, yeah. How many zeros does it take? Everything's
zeros.
fixable within zeros. But it sounds like the pathway is your number one and an extra picnic table.
Pathway and sort of, they're two kind of just next to each other looking into nowhere. And so, making an area that it's a little more usable would be nice.
that's super helpful.
Some benches while parents sit and watch their kids play on the asphalt.
All right. Coming back to, you've gotten feedback from each commission member on priorities. Those top priorities are aligned with your top priorities from all I can tell, with some wish list additions. We did not necessarily take anything off for you just to make it hard. Do we need a vote or a formal recommendation?
Yes.
Right. Do I have a motion that someone could articulate for me as to what it is?
I move to support the recommended major projects going on to town council listed here, as well as those specified regarding Cove Park that we collectively have reviewed.
Second.
Commissioner Bodeman?
One last thing, do we need to specify which iteration of the playground though?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Yes. With an amendment.
Sorry.
Of the
You wanna
whole
start?
playground. We do.
Okay, yes.
And a revisit of the fitness equipment. Just because it's $500.
Which one are you talking?
You want to continue discussion and start
Yeah, you want to start over? Redo?
over?
Yeah, and sorry, are
definitely
we talking
go.
about sending this?
Two of them.
Is that what?
Oh, between the two.
Main,
Recommended.
It's
So the fitness,
So we want to go with the three. So it's a motion to approve the three
right.
recommended priorities of field, Mickey Park, playground to its full extent.
Plus the Cove paths and benches.
Yep.
As the minimum to go to town council.
correct. Do you want anything else?
Yep, then that I can second.
Okay.
What about the rest of the
And
list?
the rest of the list is secondary. How does the rest of the list play out when you go to council?
The rest of this doesn't go anywhere. I mean, I think if there's other items we can add to the work plan that as funding allows or as time allows, I think it's helpful that you've identified some of the things like replanting the trees at Town Park or the distance markers that could be easily done that would like to be, but these are the top 4 or 5 that really we want council to address.
It's also a good starting point for your next iteration of your discussions.
Right.
And these are these are the big ticket things,
Correct.
right? The other
Correct.
things, if funding allows, are still listed as a priority this year, right? They're just,
There is a priority. I think if you're passionate enough, you want to include them in the work plan, then we put them in the work plan. and we always can, items in the work plan carry over from year to year all the time, or still being worked on. But if you still think it's a priority to replant some trees back in the picnic area in town park, then I put it on the list. I think as long as on the
Yeah, I
list and
think
basically
everybody-
funding allows, it's better to be on the list than not there is what I would, it helps guide that direction, you know.
I personally think trees and shade is really important.
Mhm. Well, I'm also concerned that we've left the old people out.
Okay.
Well, we are still working on the age-friendly intergenerational center.
No, I mean in the park.
Oh,
Benches, the benches and tables.
I think Patty's talking specifically about a fitness.
Oh.
Could you, I guess we structure this as the motion is kind of what we just articulated, but then there's a next step of evaluating the outdoor fitness equipment to really prioritize, I guess, which ones would be, like you said, Patty, like most used and, I
Most
think it just needs
appropriate.
more,
so an
more of an evaluation.
exploratory.
Explore, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we're
Exploratory
not
survey.
ready to, at least from my perspective, it doesn't feel like we're ready to advance that necessarily, but we could at least have a next step around it.
I think especially because historically this was reviewed and there was difficulty finding a location. So that
Right.
issue may,
The location
back
for
around.
this particular one was that for this grant, it had to be that footprint. It had to, because they had marketing and donor logos and things, and it had to look a certain way to fit the mold for that particular grant. Whereas other jurisdictions you've probably seen have them sporadically throughout the park or in a line going down a trail. But the one that this body evaluated was that square footprint with everything located in the same space.
Can we, so I'm hearing that there's more exploration on this, but is there some way to at least have a line item? Because I don't want it to get forgotten year over year, right? That like sort of a note, like this is like a placeholder or something. So yes, we need to do some more exploration before specificity is given, but like I just don't want it to Patty's point, I don't want it to get forgotten.
Then my suggestion would be is to put it exploratory on the work plan. There's no money attached to it. It just explore looking into this. So it's
Yeah.
something for
Yeah.
staff and myself to work on for the 2025 year.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if there is money, if you need someone to evaluate it and design it. No?
I'm saying there's no money attached to it right now in the budget. They're saying explore this as an item to look forward. Is like, how do we accomplish that goal in the 20? It may not get accomplished and done in that time frame, but at least we made steps in the right direction during that time frame.
But if staff needs help, exterior help exploring that, then there would be money. It's not a huge amount, but there would be something attached to
Correct.
that. Okay. All right. So does it help for us to run through the list again? Do we have it? We've got the East Field, right?
So we've got the East Field,
Mhm.
Minky Park, the playgrounds at the full tilt. Pathways and benches at the Cove, trees and shade in Town Park, and benches kind of across town. Picnic tables and benches, and then exploration of the outdoor fitness court.
What about Granada's restroom? What happened to that?
We're
It's still there. It's just, the question was to build a structure for the ADA accessible porta potty. So it didn't look like it just said.
So it's still on the,
toilet is still there, but.
Well, it's still there, but correct. Right now we're not, what I'm hearing is that's not an item you want to add to the work plan.
And the shade structure over at the picnic tables at the Cove. We don't need, but we do.
Picnic tables and benches. Yeah.
when I spoke to the people at Granada, the problem was that the restroom took up the parking space. And there were only 3 parking spaces. So I don't know, it used to be in a different spot and got moved over to be ADA. Is that what happened? And it can't go back to that old spot and widen the footprint. Okay.
Yeah, so it would would the structure around it take up more parking space?
My assumption is the structure would be put somewhere else, not in a parking lot, and have access to get up to the ADA accessible porta potty. That's why it went up to where
That's
it
why
was. Correct.
That'd be a- And then pollinator garden, we haven't talked about. I think it's that thing. I'm not against it, but it's.
But again, this will be a list that we will again bring back next year to keep as a starting point for the discussion.
All right, so can I get a motion to move forward with the recommendation from staff as designed with the clarification that field, Minky Park, and the playground to the full replacement of the structure, pathways and benches at the Cove,
Picnic tables.
pathways, benches, picnic tables at the Cove, trees and shade, and then an investment in, updating picnic tables at Town Park with an exploration of the outdoor fitness courts and kind of a remembering to come back to Granada as in the time.
I think we're including all.
Yes, I said exploration of the outdoor fitness courts.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Do I have a motion?
Would so move.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Excellent. Rebecca, can we have a vote, please?
Sorry, we're making this more complicated.
Uh-oh.
So Rebecca, I got a point that should we prioritize like 1, 2, 3 or tier 1 and tier 2 so that council knows this is the top 3 things that you really are passionate about. And these are the next level. Is that like that kind of level? Or you're talking like 1 through 6, like
Should we go through each of the items and put them as a P1 and P2?
Yeah.
If memory serves, last year it was immediate, down the road, and in the distance.
I think we did kind of talk through at least when we went through field, Minky Park, playground, path of the benches at Cove, trees and shade, and then benches. I think that's our 1 through 6.
P1.
We can list them like that.
I would object to that. I want the Cove higher up on that list for me. It doesn't mean that that's the will of this commission. I'm just putting forward my,
My sense is maybe we need to prioritize the big things, maybe the lower hanging fruit doesn't need to be numbered for prioritization. So then that leaves 3 main things. And is that what you want us to 1, 2, 3?
yes.
Something we didn't even really bring up, I feel like we discussed a little, was like the potential to also fundraise money with the soccer teams, right? To
Right.
find more funds. I mean, I don't know how you
I just think for right now, at least for those 3 that are in the staff report, like some type of motion, like this is number 1, this is number 2,
Yep.
number 3. And then we have a second tier of the other ones that didn't get pulled out would be.
I would propose number 1 is the field. And I debate 2 being Mankey Park versus the playground.
Maybe instead of doing 1, 2, 3, it should be 1, and these are the items under 1. And then 2, these are the items under 2.
Well, I think for the big ticket that's what they're asking us to do is prioritize, yes?
I think it would be helpful for council. I think understanding that just take the 2, Eastfield and Mankey Park and even Town Park. You're not going to be able to do all 3 at the same time. So it might be something where it's like, hey, Mankey is a portion this year and then another portion committed to next year. Or maybe the Town Park playground has to get fixed this year along with Eastfield because of the current situation it's in. But I think that would be helpful to know for that.
That would be my in terms of time frame, me personally, I would support the East Field and the playground being done in a more timely manner. Mankey needs improvement, but there's not an urgency as much because it is still usable in the state that it's in. The playground being boarded up is not okay.
That almost puts, the playground is unusable, the field is still usable. So in terms of like, you literally can't go on it. It's very different. So I think priority wise, they're both very important, but we attack first, maybe kind of what is not available to use first, and or what's happening in the weather. If we can do one during the rainy season and the other not, like they're going to be different there. But I think those three are all very much, these are our three big ticket items
Okay.
that are going to be the most discussed. I think these other things are incredibly important to make sure we get on the work list. You know, things like the pathways, things like the benches, they're not going to require as much budget discussion because they're just not as expensive.
Yeah, and I just disagree. I think they're going to get continually pushed down. The Cove, there's no place for families to sit to watch their kids play on the very limited playground that doesn't barely even exist, boarded up or not. It's a mushy ass field. Sorry, it's not French. I said it anyway. And so I very strongly am pushing for that. But again, that's just me. It's just one vote. I'm just going to keep on hitting that. But it's my thought.
So you're saying the tables and the pathway?
I'm saying the Cove needs some love to make that a little bit user friendly. So families can sit while kids maybe do something, anything. And I know it's a lesser cost, but I think if it's not pushed up there, it gets swept away. And if it's up there as one of the top and it's easy to do, then great. Then one of the ones comes right behind it.
I think as we go to council, we can talk about, here are must-do items. These are our big ticket must-do items. These are our must-do items for, and I think that's what we'd say about the stuff, the Cove, about trees at Town Park. Like, these are our must-dos. These are the big ticket ones. These are the ones that are just obvious, and we need to be addressing parity and equality between the east side and the west side in that. So we would put, when it comes to the must-do items for the care and feeding, we should do both before we do Town Park. There's a way to think about that. It's a conversation that keeps coming up. Fred Casisa is always. Well, in that sense, is that enough direction?
Okay.
Okay.
Help structure Tim's presentation to the council for his department's turn.
And that presentation is when?
January,
January 20th.
Emily will be
my
there.
second part.
What?
It's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday
It's a Thursday.
in this room.
It's important to participate.
23rd.
23rd.
I believe it's from 9 to 2.
Does the Community Foundation also do fundraising to fund this monkey park?
Yes,
thing?
absolutely.
So I guess what I'm struggling with a little is, you know, when you're adding these three big ticket items, that ends up at almost $1 million. So then I guess it would be nice to figure out what proportion of the fields and Menke Park would you need to actually fund?
Well, I think the field's very much set that we now have a realistic number of $250,000. Okay. I think that's a number that's comfortable. I think that the Menke Park is different phases depending on what you do, when you do what. So I think it might be a certain amount this year and a certain amount next year, even the third year, but foundation saying you have 3 years of fundraising at your summer concert series to help get to a number to help support whatever part of the project. I think that both groups will support in many ways. I just don't think that whole full phase 1 and phase 2 realistically is going to happen at the same time because it's a big impact the park and it's a used park for many, many events. And that's going to be down for a long amount of time. So I think it's like maybe 1 year, all the vegetation, everything gets done. And the next year, the second part. And the second part is definitely a heavier lift of dealing with some traffic studies and some traffic flows and stuff in that area. That'll be a bigger lift than the vegetation and the accessibility issues.
I think our job is also to identify simply the priorities for the community. It's not up to us to
Correct.
divvy up the money or figure out how much money
Yeah.
we have access to. That's what our job is, just to prioritize.
Correct.
So I think I'm good. Loud and clear of the top three, and then obviously Cove is important and we should be doing it some love. And it seems like it's just
Keep hearing top three and then Cove.
We have our
Just
big ticket items. and
lodging
our
my-
must-dos.
I don't know how those are being differentiated. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm just, again, I'm only one, but it's within the top three for me. It's not a separate, oh yeah, and that is a must do. I don't know what that means. Top three and then must do's. I don't know how those are being distinguished.
They're all must-dos, big ticket items. I don't want to trade off maintenance improvements for big ticket items. Start putting apples and oranges together. I think if we were at a place where we had to say no big ticket, like here's a question, but would we trade off the field to do all of our maintenance? You say we're not gonna, if we had to choose between doing every bench and all of that field work, we're either gonna do that or we're gonna do the field. Like, are we really trading off between those two things and be willing to do that? Or do we want to push for these three big ticket items are the things we are getting behind to push for? Because we haven't pushed for a big ticket item in a long time. And we're going to council with three. And
Well,
we
the
think they're three very
bathroom was
important.
a
The bathroom was
ticket.
huge. It was a huge price tag
Mhm.
that got creatively funded. In some ways, and I think kind of went through pretty fast. Those are a big investment. But we're asking for three big investments that have been kind of sitting around for a while.
and three multi-year investments.
So I think that that's a different kind of discussion than should we put more benches at the Cove? Yes, we should.
Yeah, and are you asking for that division? I mean, are those somehow mysteriously different buckets from which the town council will be voting and determining? I mean,
There, and I just think it's when council asks the priority of the top four projects, what are the top four? If the top four are Lees Field, Menke Park, Town Park Playground, and some additions to Cove, then those are the four things we say are the top four things commission is passionate about.
And that's why I don't want them divided up big or small, because if we're just presenting them as the top, I assume they're going to hit the biggest one first. If there's anything left over, great, but that's why I want to make sure it's, for me, that it's higher up on that list of numbering. But if, I mean, again, you guys have what you need. I don't need to be
But-
about with semantics.
I think the point that was made is important, that we're supposed to be prioritizing what is needed, not looking at the price tags. We're supposed to, the onus is on us to say this is what the community needs. And then they can divvy out how they want to do that after that.
So what I take away from it is if I had to pick five things the community really needs, it's rehabilitation East Field, fixing the Town Park Playground, some work to Menke Park, some improvements to Cove Field, and some shade at Town Park where the trees came out for the picnic area. Those are the five things that you've heard from
In that
the,
exercise.
I think exploratory of do some work on the work plan to figure out, is it possible and how it worked? But at least those five are the ones that in
Are
some
ready
way,
to
shape, or
go.
form either have to be
Yeah.
done or progress be made in multi-years that you heard from the community.
Right.
Write it down now.
Yeah.
Priorities.
Yes.
All right. Do we have a motion on the five priorities?
And you want
We
to
gotta do it?
come on the 23rd and speak during open time.
Do you need us to vote now?
Okay, so you amended your motion to,
To the
make-
five priorities, the field, Mickey Park.
I think you're all set.
playground, Path and benches, at the Cove, trees and shade.
Are those in order or just the top?
Those are the top five priorities.
Not in order.
Not in order, then yes, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Rebecca, can we get a vote, please?
thank you for that discussion. Commissioner Bodeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennick,
Yes.
Commissioner Rose.
Yes.
Commissioner Stoliar,
Yes.
Commissioner Hitchcock is absent, Vice Chair Charlie,
Yes, thanks.
and Chair Miles.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes.
Right. 5C, review and possible recommendation to town council regarding memorial bench program.
We have never really had a formal memorial bench program, memorial bench donor program. There was kind of a application that was filled out pre-COVID. And residents had people had a choice of bench, trees, picnic tables, and a variety of items. there were no official kind of price tags attached to it. There was always, what is the current cost? Where's it going to go? What does the person want to donate? So kind of all over the board. It was supposed to be addressed in the facilities master plan. It didn't happen. So that was kind of dropped off. So what I'm bringing back tonight is a draft policy of the ability for someone who wants to donate something in the park and locations and the costs associated with. As we talked previously, the price tag is a little more expensive when someone's a new bench, new location, just due to ADA issues and access to get to it. So for example, if you want to put a new picnic area kind of by these field, there's really no pathway to get to that picnic table. So there would be obviously some improvements that need to be done. As Rebecca did say, there are some deficiency funds we could use towards that, but at least there's a ballpark of how much it would cost. We did some research of San Anselmo, City of Mill Valley, City of Schlosser, and San Rafael, kind of all over the board. Some of this lives in Public Works, lives in Park and Rec, some of it lives in between. Our preference is basically that the person or people who want to donate something makes the request. We go to a site visit and say, what are we thinking? Bring Public Works out and say, do you want to put whatever here? What are the associated costs? What are the challenges? What are the deficiencies? How do we make it all work? And then work with Public Works on the back end to say, is this feasible for the price tag that it's at? Have them fill out an application and then basically be able to put a memorial bench in. There are many different varieties of benches all over the town. Some have plaques on the ground, some have plaques on the bench, some have plaques on this. It's kind of all over the board. What we are going to have our locations that are listed here, and then if someone has a location that's on town property, we'll evaluate it case by case. One change that I need to make a staff report that I got from the town attorney was on plaque wording. Basically, what we're going to change it is you have these many characters on the plaque. The town has the right to basically decide if what you are asking to put on is appropriate or not, which I'll run by the city attorney when we get those applications. So it's just an addition to what is on this current staff report. The other thing in this discussion is basically if something happens to the bench, what happens? So there clearly isn't anything, there aren't a lot of records of who put in what bench when. We wrote in kind of a 5-year policy. After 5 years, if something happens where the bench is broken, something happens, we go back to the donor and say, look, here's the cost to basically put it back. Obviously, if it's an act of God or we did something wrong, we would cover that cost. But if basically the bench is now in disrepair or a problem, the cost we put on back the person they want to donate back. I gave 2 examples in the staff report. I did not give an example of the ADA picnic table, but they do have one. It just wasn't on their website, but they are basically made of a wood with a kind of surface or resiliency on it. So it's basically anti-graffiti and basically can be cleaned, but then put in those locations of the park for both the tables and the picnic benches. And I guess this kind of started and kind of died after COVID. So we're kind of bringing it back to have a formal process. Someone could go online, fill out the application and kind of get this done. We get these requests all the time. There's quite a few benches in town, and we're trying to formalize the process before I take it on to council for final approval.
I think this is great.
I love this idea.
Yes, please.
Number 1, do you have to be dead? Because I think like someone like Pauline would have been wonderful for her to have a bench that she could enjoy in her life. So that's one question. And does the bench expire? I thought there was something about an expiration after a few years that I don't know if the plaque goes away or the bench goes away.
Does not expire. What happens if there's damage, something going back to the person, if the bench falls apart? Obviously, you're putting new benches in. I don't see that happening, but if you're putting a plaque on an older bench, that could happen. But a brand new bench life cycle is 15, 20 years. So I don't see that as an issue.
Okay,
5 years, I rip your name off.
Okay. And then I didn't see tree or bush.
So we did not put tree or bush. The challenge that I learned that last time, they had several trees who died because they were either missed water, they were diseased, and the town was on the to replace it. So at this point, we were not recommending a tree. Now, if somebody really wants to, it's a discussion I can have with Public Works. But the time was not to put trees or bushes back in, just physical elements. A lot of towns do water fountains or bike racks or other kind of things. But right now, it's just those are what I'm listing for.
Only because we're trying to add more trees. So that's why I thought if it were something that Public Works said, yes, this is the perfect tree for this spot and this is the perfect spot, then it seemed like that would be good, or the person's favorite rose bush or whatever. Thank you.
Public comment, emailed or raised hands?
My email timed out. But we did not have any raised hands from the online attendees, of which there are none. And I'm opening up the email again, and we did not receive any emailed public comments.
Be dead to get a bench? No? Okay.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question? In terms of the locations, you just have the parks names. Will you select the locate, like,
I would like mine in the middle of the East Field.
Well, I sort of see an ability to serve two purposes here. So if there is a clearly identified area where either there's an existing bench or we want to add benches, is that at the discretion of the town or the discretion of the person donating the bench?
Discretion of the town. So Public
Right.
Works and I would meet and say, hey, this bench doesn't belong in the middle of the playground or
That's what
middle
I
of
would
the
support. Thank you.
basketball court. But if you want to donate one on the new pickleball, yes. So sorry, all the
Really like
bench
to
in the
sit
field.
here.
Yes.
It's mine, or I don't know, it's my bench.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the recommendation?
I move to approve the recommendation of the reinstitution of the memorial bench program as so discussed.
Second.
Excellent. Rebecca, can we get a vote, please?
Commissioner Bodeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennick,
Yes.
Commissioner Rose.
Yes.
Commissioner Stoliar,
Yes.
Commissioner Hitchcock is absent, Vice Chair Charlie, and Chair Miles.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes.
Hey, at this,
Took like 7 years.
I know, that's so fun. It's a good thing we didn't have any presentations. We made up for it. Okay, good discussion, everybody. We're gonna move on to staff updates and commissioner reports. Tim.
The art show is currently up at the Corte Madera Community Center. It closes this Wednesday. There's an evening reception 5 to 7. We have all the local artists and we have all the kids who participate in the Painted Bins project. They're doing another reception where they will announce the winners of the Painted Bins. We had about 150 people at the opening last Saturday. It was really popular. And it was a great event. And again, we'll be out there for the closing. Gingerbread House decorating is the 20th. It is sold out. Got a couple of the wait list, but it is full. We have, I think, 25 or 30 people, so it is full the 20th. I'm going to share my screen real quick because hopefully people have been seeing this around. We are going live with a Civic Rec on January 2nd.
Yay.
The brand new software will be up and running. So we are pushing this hard with all of the schools. All the newsletter, create your account.
What time on the second? Midnight? You think I'm kidding? People have been asking. Guess it's hard to
I'm
get
not
into.
100%. I will have to find out. We have a call. We have another call tomorrow. I will find out.
Okay.
But I am not 100% sure what time it goes live.
You
on
mean
the
the
site.
system's going live or registration?
Registration is going online January 2nd.
Oh,
You can actually go in right now and create an account.
we can already.
And you can create an account now. We basically did not import any data over because a lot of it was outdated. It had wrong information. We really only had three forms of residency: Corte Madera, Larkspur, and other. It's really not very helpful. Supervisor Bliss and Rochelle, our contractor, has been an amazing job of getting this ready to go. It is light years ahead of where it was. We were so happy. All of our instructors can go in and check their own enrollment, check their own classes. They can print out rosters. They can email students, or we couldn't do that before. And it is Civic Rec, which is part of our already system we use for our registration, our website, Civic Live. So we are very excited to, this is up on the website. It also has a how to create an account with all the questions. And we've been obviously ready to go. Staff will be working over that holiday just to make sure we go smoothly, but we are ready to go. So we're excited.
And this might be an obvious question, but the old system went dark.
The old system is dark. We still see it on the back end, so we can still full reports and everything, but pretty much December 31st, it'll go dark. It was bought out by a system. It basically had no support and basically needed to go. It was,
Yeah,
some-
no,
it
I
had
just
some-
didn't
yeah,
know.
it
There's
is
like a
dark, yes.
redirect or something.
Yeah, no, it'll be dark. It'll all be on the website. Last two town park pickleball courts and Skydiving Skate Park are going to be opening probably in January. We're dealing with a fencing issue right now. So grand opening probably in the middle of January for both those two facilities.
What's the fencing?
Getting the supplies we need to build it. So that would just be a slight problem. The last thing I have is just everybody, thank you for all your work this year. People who've joined the commission have been on for years. I truly appreciate it. Hope everybody's had happy holidays and some time with family and friends. I hope it stops raining soon. We all can go back outside and enjoy. So that is my report.
Commissioner reports, Jim.
Okay, for the November town council meetings, the meeting on November 4th did have a few items related to Parks and Rec, but I'll be brief. There was a youth commissioner appointed to BPAC, to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And that was well supported. The town council also approved a new role within the town business for a field supervisor. And this was brought up from Public Works and the council approved it. So this will now be a job that people can apply for to help supervise our beautiful fields. And thirdly, there was a long discussion regarding a pilot program for micro businesses at Menke Park, specifically like a coffee cart or food truck. And this is a pilot program only, but they're going through the motion of trying to move forward with this to assess whether this would be a favorable thing long-term for the community. The November 19th meeting did not have much at all regarding our business. Spoke mostly about some change in speed limits in the town, specifically decreasing speed limits, the safety and hazard plan that are just routine updates, and some HR consulting. That is it.
Jim, this new field
Supervisor.
supervisor, is that a public works position or a Parks and Rec position?
It's a public works position. Fields is misleading because it's not really maintaining the field. It's basically the first one to respond to something happens in the field. So kind of a level between the frontline workers and the assistant superintendent. So kind of like dealing with the day-to-day operations and then help supervising and making sure projects stay on track. So right now everyone goes straight to the superintendent or assistant superintendent, and there's kind of a bit of a log jam on some stuff. So this position will be kind of that mediator, mid-management, kind of to coordinate some stuff and improvements and field maintenance and all that kind of stuff. So, but really someone who's got a good experience of day-to-day operations of the facility.
Managing lines, field setup, goals, or no?
No, that'll still, Steve is still out there painting lines with the robot. Don't worry.
All right, I was on point for the December meeting, which happened on December the 3rd. They reorganized the council. Pat Rossi is our mayor and Rosa Thomas is now our vice mayor. We said goodbye to Charles Lee, who stepped down from the council. And we have newly or reelected Fred Casisa and newly elected and actually reelected again, James Andrews onto the council. They spent a good bit of time talking about the Soma swim program, which was kind of interesting that somewhat lives outside of Parks and Rec. But the council approved last year $57,000 for a summer swim program that they did at Redwood last year. There's a huge increase in participation because the programs were free. So there was free family swim, free lap swim, free swim lessons for low-income families. 43% of the participants came from Corte Madera, which is just under 4,000 total participants in the summer. This coming summer, Redwood is getting resurfaced, so Redwood will not be in the swim program, which people are a little sad about, but Adam's going to come back and tell us what to do about that in February. And Larkspur didn't have a lot of participation. They weren't included in the you get some free only Corte Madera residents. There were some discussions about ADUs and junior ADUs, so we have approved things for ADUs and junior ADUs if you want to build. And then there was some interesting conversation about the EV chargers, which we haven't talked about here.
We have not.
Which are kind of exciting. The goal of the EV chargers is to create public places for low-income families to charge their EVs if they can't charge at home. This includes 4 parking spaces that will go into the Pixley side of Town Park.
Yep.
Every time you install EV chargers, you have to also install an EV charger that is handicap accessible, which can only be used by handicap accessible EV car. What I was curious about is, are we going to enforce if a gas powered car parks there? Are we going to tow them? That didn't come up, but it was interesting. And then there's this idea to continue to expand this, which I think we should be concerned about from a number of parking spaces, especially at Town Park, but also at the Cove, because they're going to put them in too. There aren't a lot of parking spaces. And if we're using parking spaces to charge cars and not for people using the parks, we are going to have some trouble. And if there are regulations as to who can park there, and some of them become even more restrictive than where we are today, we're going to have more problems. So we should be aware that that's going on. Yes, those are my updates. My only other update is that I got emailed from somebody at Spark who would like to be put on the civics committee, the civic list. But I feel like we covered that. Well, Executive Advisory Committee did not meet. Did pickleball and tennis ad hoc committee?
No, Tim and I did not meet.
Excellent. And the 2025 work plan items team, I feel like you guys gave your update. Yes. Awesome. Routine and other matters. The following items do not require a formal hearing, but the chair and staff will indicate which each item is on the agenda. Does anybody want to make changes to future agenda items?
So you will get a whole new list in 2025 when we meet. And then we'll also bring a draft of possible meeting dates for 2025. One change that Rebecca and I had to work on was we have kind of assigned the council meetings for 2025 alphabetically. So hope that was okay. We kind of randomly did it last year, I think kind of on rotation. So we have these up for January. That makes sense to everybody. Any questions?
No. So, January 27th, we will have a meeting, to which we will have an agenda when we have it.
27th?
Question, on December 16th, it says.
So that'll come back in January with the annual report because we wanted to finish out the year. So in January, you'll get a full summary of the 2024 and then a scholarship report. Yeah.
Is there a need to continue our ad hoc committees another month? Yes. No?
My recommendation would be to keep the ad hoc committee at least for the master plan discussion. If something comes out of council, I think pickleball and tennis seems to be okay. Maybe we'll check in like 6 months when everything goes and see how that looks, but I think we're okay for now.
We can just reestablish it in 6 months.
Yeah.
We can capture data, figure out what's going on.
Switch with somebody. We can do this offline, but.
But the 27th council commission meeting or the council meeting in January? Oh, to report out.
I won't be able to do the update.
Okay, January for,
No, now.
Email,
Oh, to talk about the commissioner meeting.
Yeah, that's,
yes, council meeting.
I'm just saying because I am
email the report,
January.
Yeah, do you want to email
You can just
email your report.
Someone will say it for you. Like, I'm happy to.
I can.
Or you could trade with somebody who knows they are interested in, there's only one council meeting in January, but there's also the work plan meeting. So if somebody knows that they're definitely going to be interested in
it? Anybody?
monitoring me.
Who would it be?
Yeah,
You're up next.
But no, that really isn't a part of this. It's not a town council meeting. It's a special meeting workshop, but I think it fits the bill if you know you're going to be monitoring it and paying attention and possibly providing input.
I had a
But otherwise, there
question
is only one council meeting in January.
about the pickleball and the noise
Yeah,
that
it's really
was a
fun.
concern from people. Did we address that?
So sound blankets were installed and that's supposed to mitigate the noise from the pickleball. No one's playing yet, so we don't know. But
Right,
that's
right.
sound
But
blankets were installed in the project. So
I had read about lawsuits of condo associations suing pickleball places. I thought, no. So yes, I assume it'll be taken care of. Thank you.
All right, so Emily, you're up for report out. And with that, our next meeting is Monday, the 27th of January, 2025. Happy holidays, happy new year to everybody.